What's up, Long Island? I'm Andrew Rappaport, and I am here with a very special guest, Patrick Godfrey, who, if you can't tell by all these fancy rings here, he won a lot of championships at Clemson University. What's up, Patrick?
Hey, just excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me on, Andrew.
Now, my first question for you is, show off your ring a little bit. How do I get one of those?
A lot of blood, a lot of sweat, a lot of tears and agony, but I'm very happy to have these shiny rings as a memento.
So Patrick won 2 national championships at Clemson.
Yes, sir.
Before that, you played at Harborfields High School.
Yes, sir. Go Tornadoes.
How does a guy from Harborfields, which, let's be honest, is not known for football,
Yeah.
more basketball,
Fair statement.
how does a guy from Harborfields High School end up at Clemson?
I would say it all kind of just starts with a dream. My whole life, I grew up watching, Notre Dame football and college football every Saturday, and that was really, my dream ever since I was a little kid was to play on that big stage. And I heard a lot of rhetoric out there that you're on Long Island. That's not necessarily the hottest place in the world for recruiting. And it got to me a little bit, but I ultimately, after my senior year of high school, decided to kind of take a leap of faith and go walk on as a student at Clemson, and it really paid off.
So now you're at home. You told me you had scholarships to maybe Bryant and some other schools, but when you tell people, I don't want Bryant, I don't want these other schools, I'm going to try Clemson, did people say to you, you're nuts?
I heard a lot of that, actually. Even my high school coach sat me down and said, Pat, you're crazy. You're giving up an opportunity to play at, some very legitimate 1AA colleges and an opportunity that most people dream for. But, my dream was never to play in front of 5,000 people. My dream was always to go roll the dice, give it a shot, and see if I could do it in front of 80. So, to me, I wanted to go big or go home and, make sure that when I walked away from the game of football that I knew that I really maximized my full potential, and Clemson was the only place where I was going to be able to do that.
Okay, so you meet Dabo for the first time, and I'm sure he didn't have much tape on you, right? So how does that exchange work? Hey, I'm here from Green Lawn, I want to play football?
Yeah, really what had happened was when I was actually at my 100-man tryout, Dabo at one point whispered to one of his coaches, but I overheard, "Can you believe this boy's from New York?" When I heard that, I knew I was in good shape.
So now you played for 2 years, right, as a walk-on?
Yes, sir.
Take me through that.
It was tough. I was used to being, kind of the man at Harborfields. I had ascended my way up the ladder and felt pretty good about my career in high school. And then all of a sudden, you walk into an environment where everybody is, former All-Americans out of high school. Guys had 30 offers from every SEC and ACC school. And it was tough, having to start at the bottom of the totem pole. But I learned pretty quickly that, if you just, put your nose down, go to work every single day, and don't complain and just be the hardest working guy quietly, that eventually you get noticed. So that's kind of who I had to be for my first couple years in the program.
The first couple of years there, especially the first year, were you like, wow, this is crazy? Or were you like, no, I belong?
What kind of happened was the first couple days, it was a whirlwind. Everything was happening so fast. I was behind. I had no idea what was going on. But I remember one day I went and I was playing scout team and I pulled on Shaq Lawson, who is now a defensive end for the Bills.
I'm a Bills fan.
Yeah, and I pulled on Shaq and I kicked him out, and I was maybe 10 pounds lighter than him at the time, but I kicked him out, and that was kind of the moment where I remember thinking, you can play at this level. This guy is an All-American, and if you can block that guy, who's to say that you can't eventually work your way onto the field at Clemson? So I kind of just took off from there, and I believed in myself when I don't think that anybody else did.
After 2 years, you get a scholarship.
Yes, sir.
Who told you they were giving you the scholarship?
I had a pretty magical kind of scholarship moment that they talk about. I was having a really tough time at camp. It was about 2 weeks through training camp, but still about 2.5, 3 weeks out from the game. Those dog days that any football player can relate to, and I was really kind of struggling. And by the grace of God, I walk into the team meeting one day. and Coach Swinney is doing this thing that we do maybe once or twice a year called Safe Seat, and that's where he calls a guy up in front of the team and kind of asks him some questions, some personal stuff, and it's an opportunity for guys to open up and get to know your teammates a little bit better. So luck would have it, I get called up in front of the team, and I'm sitting there, and Coach Swinney's grilling me a little bit, talking to me about my Long Island past, and making some jokes, getting some questions from teammates, and then Coach Swinney starts talking about my background and how I was a crawl-on, not a preferred walk-on like most guys, but a crawl-on onto the Clemson program like he was at Alabama. And he says, Pat, you've been working your tail off for years now, and he's like, I know, your work hasn't gone unnoticed, and I just want to let you know that you're on full scholarship. And the whole team rushed to the front of the team meeting room and rallied around me. On top of that, he canceled practice for the day, and we had karaoke night instead. So it was one of the best 5-hour spans of my entire life. But I was a hysterical mess, and a pretty good feeling.
Who was the first person you called when you found out you got the scholarship?
My dad. My dad thought I was screwing around with him. He was like, all right, Pat, come on. I was like, no, Dad, seriously, I got a scholarship. And then my mom shortly after that. But my pops is an old football coach. I got to give a shout out to him because he's kind of been my advantage throughout my whole playing career. So it was really important for me to give him a call.
And then did you call every one of those people that told you were nuts, including your high school coach, and go, yeah, what?
Well, my high school coach, they give me a little kudos, once I made the team. I think that was enough for them. But, of course, I had to call up my high school coaches, Mike Potter, Dennis Harmon, and along with my athletic director, John Valenti, and just kind of share the good news with them. And they're all, pumped for me. It's kind of like family back at Harborfields. So all those guys, I say they might have doubted me a little bit, but they've always loved me through everything. And, they've been very supportive.
Running through the tunnel, 80,000 fans. Is there any better feeling?
No. I mean, Clemson, we're known, we have the best entrance in college football coming down the hill. So the first time I ran down the hill was one of the most magical moments of my entire life. And actually the second time I ran down the hill was versus my lifelong, team as a kid, Notre Dame. Oh. So just some really, really special moments that I'm going to hold on to for the rest of my life. But it's going to be tough to replicate those kind of highs that you get when, hearing 81,000 people call your name. It's pretty cool.
So Clemson is where you said there would be no other place for you to play. Did you really want to try for Notre Dame first? It's a little crazy now looking back on it because Clemson has turned out to be so great. But at the time, I thought, that Clemson was a little bit more of an attainable football goal for me than Notre Dame was because I thought Notre Dame, with the Rudy background, would have the top walk-ons in the world. Now I know after going through Clemson that we really have the top walk-ons in the country. Are those 4 years even better than what you thought it was going to be when you left Long Island?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, when I left Long Island, the goal was just singularly make the team. And I didn't know if it was going to be, my first tryout, which was my fourth day on campus, which it wound up being, or if I was going to have to try out 10 times and be a fifth-year senior trying to make the team. But I knew I was going to keep going until I made it. So once I made the team, all of a sudden, the focus shifted. I became a little more goal-oriented, and it was on to the next thing. Let's get on the field. Let's maybe get a scholarship. But I could have never imagined that things would turn out the way that they have. When I arrived at Clemson, we were the number 12 school in the country. We were a very respectable, good program, but we didn't have national championship ambitions every year. So to walk away with 2 rings, I mean, it's stuff you couldn't make up. It's really just special. I don't have words.
What kind of message does this send to the rest of Long Island that a guy from Harborfields who may not have been the most well-known football player, maybe didn't have the biggest accolades, but now has these? What kind of message does that send to every football player right now?
Well, I just want the kids out there on Long Island to know that the only limiting factor out there is how hard you're willing to work. And there's a lot of rhetoric out there that Long Island doesn't have the best football in the country, but I can tell you from personal experience, I played in the Boomer game my senior year in high school, and on my Long Island team, there was probably 10 to 15 guys I could look around at and say, those guys would have been good players at Clemson. And, just because the eyes aren't on you doesn't mean that you don't really have it. So I would just challenge Long Island kids to shoot big. And for some guys, that might be, hey, I want to go try to play at a Division III school. Other guys, it might be, hey, a Clemson or an Ohio State, who knows. But I just challenge everybody out there to go work and see how good you can get. Walk away from the game with no regrets, like I can proudly say.
How often do you break out that tie?
Whenever I got a little Clemson-themed event, it's always good to bust it out, and I like to dress a little snazzy. And whenever I can represent the Tigers, it's a good thing.
All right, so I guess this ties in with football, but if anybody sees his Instagram account, he does a little bit of bodybuilding. Pat is a bigger guy. How did you get involved in that? Is just from football training?
Well, I've always loved training almost equally to my passion for football. So when the game was leaving me, I needed a new direction to focus my efforts, and it was really a no-brainer for me. I'm a gym rat all the way, and I was fortunate enough to put on a lot of muscle along with a lot of fat as an offensive lineman at Clemson. So I just started to cut some weight down. I couldn't be a fat boy forever, and all of a sudden the muscles started to show up, and I said, hey, maybe if I get real serious about this, I could be a pretty good bodybuilder. So focused my efforts on that for the whole spring, and when I did a show in South Carolina, I was fortunate enough to win my division on June 1st, and it was a really fun experience. And maybe down the line I could grace the Olympia stage if I can't grace the NFL.
All right, so you think you'd be able to teach me how to get to look like that?
Andrew, I believe in you. You're a hard-working guy. I hear about the hours you put in here at News 12. So, if you focus a little bit of that effort on in the gym, we could get you ripped up by next summer.
All right, so I'm taking you up on that. When you come back in January, we're going to get in shape.
All right, no, sounds good. It's a plan.
Done. All right, well, awesome, and I hope you don't mind. I have a ring. He's got a whole bunch of them. I'm going to keep one.
Yeah, take it. It's a keepsake.
Perfect. Right with my wedding ring. There you go. Patrick, great job.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.